Okay, this is August 3rd, 1984. This is Joe Todd, an interview with Dr. Leroy Goodman. Dr. Goodman, where were you born?
In Lexington, Oklahoma, February the 16th, 1898. Right across from Purcell, there's Lexington.
Who was your father?
Fred Goodman. My mother was Edna Goodman.
What was her name before she was married?
Summers, Edna Summers, Edna Alcea Summers.
What kind of work did your father do?
Dairyman.
When did they come to Oklahoma?
I don't know, they came up from Texas, I think, 1901. I was born in Oklahoma. Hell, I don't know. 1898, I guess. About when I was born.
Did your folks come up for the opening, the land opening?
Oh, no. No, he bought a farm there. He gave $165 for it near Lexington.
Yeah.
There's a man on it, and he traded him out of it. I think a horse and some money.
Yeah, okay. What kind of chores did you do in the dairy?
What kind of chores did I do?
Yeah.
Oh, I did the milking, same as anyone else. We had 65 cattle.
What was the name of the dairy?
North Harrison, dairy at Shawnee. Well, they were German people.
I have to ask a question. In the middle of the river there between Lexington and Purcell was a saloon.
Yeah, that river was South Canadian, and there was a saloon there on this side, on Lexington side, known as the Last Chance. It was across the river to the Oklahoma, to Purcell and the Oklahoma line. Prohibition was in force over there. I suppose on account of the Indians, I don't know. We had a brewery at Lexington then, right south of town. There was a brewery. Lexington then was a highly active place. Surrey's crossed the South Canadian from Purcell to Lexington and brought people over for a drink. There were many saloons there. I can remember smelling them as we drove by when I was a child.
Mm-hmm. Who ran that Last Chance Saloon?
Never knew.
Okay.
I was only 6 or 7 then. Odors were more, though I could distinguish odors.
Yeah. When at statehood they closed all the saloons.
Huh?
At statehood, 1907.
1907, we moved to Shawnee by that time, and I was living at Shawnee when the saloons were closed.
Yeah.
Prohibition.
Tell me about statehood day.
Oh, I can't remember. It's too far back.
Yeah, okay. Where'd you start school?
Where?
Yeah.
At Lexington at Prairie Valley School, I believe it was named. I was just in first grade. And Lone Star School at Lexington. I went to 2 schools there.
Okay. Did you go through high school and
Shawnee. Mm-hmm. I went to Grove School at Shawnee from 1907, grade school, and then I went to high school at Shawnee. All my records burned up. I was accepted in medical school on my own word.
Where'd you go to medical school?
Down to OU. I went to Ohio State in pre-med, 1920. 21 to Ohio State, 21 and 22. Then I came back and went to medical school at Oklahoma University.
What were your classes like at Ohio State?
Oh, wonderful. Ohio State had, in pre-med, they had high grade of education. At that time, they had all this great football team. I was an usher at Ohio State University. I worked at the insane asylum there and got $25 a month for my boarding room and laundry. Went to pre-med.
What were your duties at in the asylum?
I worked in the admission ward from 6 until 12 each night. And they were taking care of the insane.
And when did you get medical school at OU?
1921, I believe. I graduated in 27.
Now, was that here in Oklahoma City?
Yeah, it was then. Yeah, I had 2 years down at Norman, and I had a job down there embalming the cadavers that came in. I was very fortunate in having that good job.
Where did most of the cadavers come from?
They came from derelicts and people that died in alleys not identifiable. A few from the state insane asylum that their folks abandoned them.
Who was head of the medical school when you were there?
Dr. Leroy Long.
What kind of man was he?
Oh, he's a solid, fine man. He was a great man for the state of Oklahoma. All our teachers were then. They were driving for, it's a young state, they hoped for a beautiful state to come out of their work.
Tell me about your commencement exercises, 1927.
The commencement exercise where Josh Lee was the speaker. It was out in the old auditorium there where a basketball court was, just north of the present stadium. What am I saying? And it was a great group of people there on the stage. They did not give you your diploma, but give you a wrapped up paper. And after you was off the stage, you were given your real diploma. I was very grateful to receive my diploma because I still questioned whether my high school credits would be brought up before I got my diploma. And as I told you, the Shawnee High School burned and my credits all were lost.
Where did you serve your internship?
At the Old Oklahoma General. I was there 1 year, and then I went to postgraduate work to University of Pennsylvania for 2 years. At Boston, and then the second year in surgery, I was down at Rutherford, North Carolina. That was still under the auspices of the University of Pennsylvania.
When did you return to Oklahoma?
Oh, in 1927 or 8. No, I graduated from OU. That would be 1922. I returned to Oklahoma from Ohio State. Yeah.
Okay. Let me back up and ask, what did you do during World War I?
I was medical technician in France and a corporal. I was a laboratory technician. And I went with a hospital group to France in 1917, the early part of the year. I got lost from the hospital group, and after I was over there for maybe 60 days, I was lost from it. And then I looked for a second job, and I picked up a job as a motorcycle rider. And so I rode an Indian motorcycle the rest of the time I was over. About a year.
Yeah. What did you do in the hospital? What were your duties in the hospital?
Try and stop diarrhea. They, everybody over there ate slop, and there was no food. The diarrhea broke out, so we didn't have any toilets. We just had some dug rows, you know, and men would go out just squat over the side of the rows. They just slept in the mud or in tents.
Were you successful in stopping the diarrhea?
Oh no, there was no medicines.
No medicine.
We had no medicine, nothing.
Do you treat many of the wounded?
Oh no, no wounded at all. But they were all sick there where I was.
And then what'd you do with the motorcycle? What were your duties as a motorcycle
Oh, I
rider?
rode, will this be quoted later? I stole shoes. I didn't get paid for a year after I was over there. And I stole shoes and sold them to the French. An officer and I both. We had a sidecar and we'd fill it up with shoes. Go out in the countryside. The French didn't have any shoes.
Mm-hmm. What were your official duties on the motorcycle?
Carrying messages, carrying officers to and fro.
What unit were you in when you were with the
I don't know, it's a casualty group, and it's assembled unit, and it quickly disappeared. That group I was with were nearly all killed when I went in. I saw some of them on the road home. 2 or 3 of them, they said, and were all killed within 2 and 3 days after I was lost away from.
What part of France were you in?
Tours France, Tours, and on the Loire River, Loire, Loire River.
Tell me about the trip over to France on the boat.
The trip on the France boat was hopelessly crowded. It was on the Orca, O-R-C-A boat, an English boat. They had batch of preserved eggs, and that's about all we had to eat. That and some cookies. We slept in hammocks, and the vomited material was deep on the floor each morning. So I generally abandoned the hammock and slept out on the deck just on the bare boards. The odor in it was terrific. There's no ventilation in there.
Having trouble with the U-boats going over?
No U-boats seen at all. We zigzagged all the way over. I believe there's 14 boats in our group. And we went into England. And then we run across the English Channel in a small boat, 100 or 200 in a small boat to Saint Nazaire, France.
What did you do on Armistice Day?
Armistice Day was a fake. Armistice Day was 2 days. The papers never did report it accurately. It was announced and the war was over on November the 9th, and a great celebration broke out. And then all at once, we were told that the war wasn't over, and so then on the 11th it was officially announced. No celebration much on the 11th.
You ever go in the trenches?
Oh, no trenches except those toilet trenches.
Yeah.
You'd fall in them if you didn't watch at night.
Okay. Where did you set up your medical practice?
Where did I start?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, at the Old Oklahoma General Hospital, and Dr. Sanger died out here, and in his illness he had a coronary attack, and I came out and replaced him, and then after his death I started right down the street down here.
What year was that?
1927 and 8. Before I was out of medical school, part of the time I was out here in assisting on weekdays.
How big was Yukon at that time?
1,400.
1,400?
All Bohemian, and the mill was big and prosperous. Had enormous flour mill trade.
Was that the main industry in Yukon?
Yeah, it was all of Yukon. This is a solidly knit town of Bohemian people that paid cash with a pocketbook. They unsnapped and paid you cash when you saw them.
Why was the town named Yukon?
Never did find out. I've always asked that myself. It was moved down here. Yukon was originally Frisco, right between here and Richland, about 5 miles north. So the railroaders started up at about 1901 or in there somewhere, and this was the only spot around that they could readily build a town to, so they just moved the buildings from Frisco down here.
How many buildings were there?
I don't know, I think it's 15 or 20.
Yeah.
Many were native stone. Used to be one right over there across the street, native stone. He moved them stone by stone down here. They hooked up their wagons and moved.
How did the Depression affect you and your family?
Not at all. I didn't even know it was on. We lived on the farm, you see, I started in 29. I was already in practice, but an office call was just $1 then. But I only made $75 or $80 a month was all you needed. You see, sardines were a nickel a can, and other foods were cheap. So we didn't even know there was a depression.
What about World War II? World War II.
Oh, World War II. 1942, I believe that was when it started. And it had no effect on me except I was overloaded in patients. And I was an examiner for the soldiers.
Yeah.
And I was in that other war 2 years, and it was too long.
Yeah. Well,
same war, just a continuation.
Any of your grandfathers in the Civil War?
Yes, my grandfather Goodman was a soldier on the north, and so I quizzed him about it. I said, "Didn't you feel good about winning the war?" And I was a little fellow. While I was down at Lexington. He said, "No." He said, "Nobody won the war." And he said deaths were on both sides, the suffering on both sides. He said he wasn't proud of it, you know.
What did he do in the war?
Well, he was just infantryman, a trench soldier.
Did he talk about any of the battles he was in?
He never would talk about it.
Yeah.
He never could work again. They got an old soldier complex. I don't know whether you've ever run into that or not. Everybody thinks they're lazy, but actually they're depressed people coming back for more.
Just give me some ideas on what do you think of Yukon, the changes in Yukon?
Oh, the present changes, they've lowered it quite a bit. The town was a unit when I came here, and they had their Bohemian Hall. Now they have many people that live on credit, and practically all their homes are old before. But then every man owned his own farm, and he was self-sufficient, you see. He had his own meat, and his own potatoes, and his own chickens, and he was just a unit. Yeah. You've seen that, you and your folks, also.
Well, I think we have a good interview.
Yeah. I appreciate your questions. They were sharp and concise.
Thank you, appreciate that. Hey, thank you.
Bicycle running. I promptly tuned it up and got my sidecar on it, and I formed a close friendship with one of the officers in this hospital camp I was in. And so he didn't get paid. Nobody got paid. All it was illness. And so I don't know, was you in World War II? You said you were.
I was in Vietnam.
You're in Vietnam. Well, here was a pile of shoes. That damn thing was as long as from here to the railroad and at least 30 foot high. Fine leather shoes, broke ends like the soldiers wore, you know. So I propositioned him. I said, he could steal gasoline, you know, and so he'd requisition the gasoline to use in our motorcycle. I said, let's see this country while we're over here. But then the war was over about then, you know. And so he said, we got no money. And I said, well, let's look at those shoes down there. And I said, you got any money? And I couldn't even hear from the home ranger. He said, yeah, he had $1 or two. And I said, let's go down there and bribe that guard. And so the guard would walk off in the other direction. We'd throw that sidecar full of shoes. And they were out in the rain. Heck, they'd been there 6 months. You couldn't believe the waste that was there. Well, you'd seen it in your work. And so then I'd run out in the countryside and we'd sell these shoes. We got $1 a pair for them, but we'd get 20 or 25 pairs for $1 cash from the guard. We'd pay him $1. And so I'd just run up and down the road, and I'd see a farmer. I'd stop and holler hi at him, and he'd come to the fence, and I'd say, you want a pair of shoes? And he'd say, sure. And, well, 5 francs then was $1.
Yeah.
And so he gave me the 5 francs and we just skin out. Frequently he'd invite me still night. I accepted. And well, usually I had the officer with me when they'd still night. We'd just go anywhere in France. In the sidecar, and it had a little curtain pulled up on it, and it rained all the time, and I got me they were made yellow raincoats in some kind, and I got one of them and got a felt hat and tied it down here with some little strings. You take that raincoat and tie around me, because I'd be exposed to the weather. And I'd ride the machine, and he'd call in the sidecar, and so we saw friends. And I had enough money to spend that way. I'd have a couple of $3 a month to spend.
Mm-hmm. What I need is your signature there.
That this is accurate.
Yeah, well, that's just our release form that'll...
On the South Platte River. Have you read that article?
No, I don't guess so.
Well, there's a couple of spires up there, 300 or 400 feet high, that come down across the last 3 billion years, something like that. With the origin of the horse and all of that, man, it's interesting.
Okay, up on the South Platte, that's right.
Yeah, you know geology then, too. My brother was a geologist, graduated from OU, too. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, that's amazing. I jumped into this thing and it just grips you. It's good. It's good like that.